Well, we're back in South Texas at our home spot here where we come for the winter. And so what I'm going to do this morning is I have some work that I need to do on the coach to get ready, because we're gonna take a short trip here, not too long. It's a nice morning, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the hot water heater element. And we've shut off the water, we've shut off the gas because it has gas and electric, and I've also turned off the power. There's a 20 amp breaker in there, and I turned off the power so that the hot water heater is completely dead. And these are just precautions you want to take before you get started. Now, the hot water heater is full of water. I had made sure that it was turned off at least overnight to let it cool, and we're going to drain all the water out of it, and we're going to disconnect the gas jets, and we're going to take the little cover off the element. We're going to take the old element out, put the new element in and connect it. It's 12 volts, and connect it and screw it down tight and put everything back together, fill it with water and turn it on, and hopefully we have some hot water. And we have a Tiffin Allegro Red, and if you have a Sunbeam hot water heater, this is basically how you do it. It's really pretty simple. It's another one of those things that you can do without having to hire an RV tech. Take a look at what you might need before you get started and set your tools out. So come on, let's go change a hot water heater element. Shouldn't take too long. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the water. So we're going to lift up. We're going to lift up on that. Just drain the water out of it because it's under pressure. And it takes a few minutes because there's actually quite a bit of water in it. And when you take the bottom, when you actually take the element out, there's going to be a bunch of water in it, but now we've relieved the pressure, so it's not going to squirt all over you. At least we hope not. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the gas tube off, and that's not all that complicated. All you're going to do is you're going to take a 7/16 wrench, and we're going to back this off, because we want to get this tube off so you can get in behind it. So we'll go ahead and take this off. Okay, we've disconnected the gas. We've rotated the pipe out of the way so that we can get to it. Now, we need to get the cover off so we can remove the element. Now, we're using how about a 1/4-inch drive socket. All we're going to do is just take this little cover off. And of course, retain all your hardware. You want to make sure that you've kept all your hardware together. Okay, once you've removed the screws, then you just want to take the cover off, and you can see right there your element is sitting back inside. Now, what we need to do is we need to disconnect the element, and that just requires a Phillips head screwdriver. A number 2 works just fine. And we're gonna disconnect that. We're gonna take the screws loose. Once we get these out, then we're in pretty good shape as far as what we do next and how long it takes. Because taking this apart is the long part of doing this. The actual changing the element is not that big a deal. All right. We want to take and push those wires back out of the way. Now, the hot water heater element is here, and the anode rod is here. Now, if you notice, the anode rod, this is a little special wrench you buy, and they're not very expensive, but they really are an important part of this job. So if you need to change the anode rod, you can just fit that over there like that. If you're changing the hot water element, you just put it over there like that. A 1/4-inch drive speed handle should give us a little better leverage other than that screwdriver, so we're going to try that. And it's even got a place you can hold it, so that's, make sure you're on square. All right. Now, we've taken the pressure off, but there's still a lot of water in here, so we're gonna back this off, and you'll see that there's a whole hot water tank worth of water that comes out of there. It doesn't take long to empty it. And you can see with all that water that poured out of there, imagine if you hadn't shut the hot water off and let the water in the tank cool and release the pressure, that would have been a stream of extremely hot water hitting you right in the chest. So always remember, shut the hot water heater off, kill the power, kill the gas, make sure it's shut off in the coach, and then you can come out here, you know, and shut the water off, because if the water's on, it'll just keep running to fill that tank. So even when you take this out, it'll be running. So yeah, you definitely want to do that. Now the next thing that I'm going to do here, before I put this back together, is I'm going to stick my finger in here, and I'm going to run it around and make sure there's no trash or anything inside the tank. As you can see, the old one, even though we have a good anode rod in, the old one has all kinds of deposits on it. And these deposits will get to the point where they'll eat right through this thing, and it'll short circuit, and then it'll trip the breaker, and it'll be no good to anybody. So now we've emptied the tank. Of course, there's no pressure. We've disconnected everything. Now we need to go back and we need to put the new one in. All right. This is what a new one looks like. This is what the one we removed looks like. And you can see that this one's all clean and whatnot. Now, one of the most important parts of this whole deal, to make sure this doesn't leak, is this rubber seal here, and it comes with the heating element. And now all we're going to do is we're going to take the heating element and stick it in and make sure it's square, because they're big threads, and just turn it down with your fingers, and you'll get to that rubber seal. Now, what you don't want to do is put a ton of pressure on that rubber seal, because if you flatten it out, the potential for it to leak exists. So what we're going to do is we're going to snug it, and we're going to put our wrench on it and take it a little farther, and just turn it just a little bit farther till it's nice and snug. Now, I don't mean overly tight, I mean nice and snug, because you want that seal to expand and fill that void, but by the same token, you don't want to flatten that seal out, which would happen if you continue to turn it. So this is this element is a loop. So to connect the loop and to run power through the loop, it doesn't matter if you put the wires on one way or another. You can do it. You can do it in such a way that if you put the black on the top or the black on the bottom, either way, it works just fine, because it's a continuous loop. It's just allowing power to run through it. As the power runs through the element, that's what heats it. So when you turn it on, power runs through the element. So it doesn't matter which way you put this on. So for our purposes here today, because it's convenient where the black wire is, we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove this screw. We're going to put it through the black wire there. And turn it down. You want to hold it in place. And you don't want to put any load on this wire because it's a crimped connection. So we don't want to do that. So you just want to hold it in place and crank it down. And like I do with any of my connections, I always want to make sure that they're tight enough to hold, but not too tight to break anything. So we've got that on there, and that's fine. And now we have the bottom wire. And we're going to take that bottom wire once we get done wrestling with it here. We'll put it in the hole, spin it down. Alright, make sure it's in there correctly. Alright, now we hit the end of the thing and just a little snug, and that's good. Now we'll check our wires, check our work, look it over, and it looks good. Looks like we've got a good installation here. Now, we have 1, 2, 3 holes on the cover. Bottom hole, and then the 2 top holes. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip this back in over the whole thing, and what screws you can start by hand, we'll start by hand. What you want to do, like any part where there's multiple screws, all you want to do is take and get them started. And once you get them started, you can run them down from there. Okay, we're just about done putting the cover on. And you just, again, this plastic part being screwed down into metal. And so what you want to do is you don't want to crank it down. You just want to snug it up. Same thing on the bottom here. We've put the wires on, we've snugged it up. Now let's go backwards here and let's install our gas jet. One of the things I like to do with the gas jet is there's that little opening can get trash in it and whatnot. So I like to blow that out a little bit, and then I'm going to slide this in, and we're going to turn it around and put the nut in there that holds that in place. And we'll tighten this down. We can get it started. There we go. It is a 7/16 nut tighten that down. Okay. Now we'll tighten up our gas line. And we'll make sure she goes in right. All right, if the thing won't initially, if you're having trouble getting these things, what you don't want to do is tighten everything up. It's like putting in multiple screws in something. And so you just kind of got to move it around till you find the threads. All right. Well, we got this tube back in, and now we're gonna snug this up for the final time. And again, you don't want to just go crazy, but we're just. And in the course of putting all this back together, if you've got to loosen stuff back up, that's fine, that's no problem. But make sure, this is a gas line, so make sure they're tight. And I don't mean overly tight, because you can strip them because they're brass, but run them in until they're snug. And it's, they're, since it's gas, they're fairly long threaded, so. All right, snug, snug, and snug. So we've got the gas line connected again. We've got the element in and connected. We've got the cap back on. And the next thing we're going to do before we ops check it is we're going to shut the water pressure relief, because if this is open and we're filling it up, water will be running all over the place. So let's do that now. I'm going to go turn the water back on, and we'll make sure it doesn't leak before I turn the electric and the gas back on. So okay, we'll let it fill up for a minute. We'll make sure it doesn't leak, and then we'll put it back together. Okay, well, it's been running for a minute or so here, and that tank is filling up, and we don't have any water coming out here under the cap. So I would have to assume that we're good to go there. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to close it up, and we'll throw the inside breaker down. We'll hit the reset buttons. Now, to test the hot water heater, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure you want to turn the water on, make sure you have water coming through there, because that tank was had water in it, and we dumped it. So when we fill it back up, you're gonna be pushing air out of that tank, and until you get a steady stream of water, you don't want to turn the hot water heater back on, because you can burn it up. And it's a lot of air. Okay, when you get a steady stream of water out of the hot water side of the faucet, that means that the tank is full and the air has been forced out of the lines. And now I like to start with, before I do anything else, I'm going to start with the gas hot water heater, and we'll turn that on. And that should go out. The water heater fault, that should go out. Okay, so the gas portion of the hot water heater is working, so we can shut that down. Now let's turn on the electric side, and we'll continue to let the water run. Now it takes a little bit of time to heat that water up. So what we'll do is we'll shut the water off, and we'll let that stay on, and we'll come back and we'll check it in about 20-30 minutes, and we'll see if we have hot water. And that's really all there is to it. And we'll be right back with the hot water, I hope. Now, the black water flush system in our coach has a it's a hydraulic breaker. It's a vacuum breaker, and all it is, the one I'm using for replacement, is a little different than the one that's in there. The one that's in there is 52 bucks, and this sells for 22 bucks. It's the same, it's essentially the same thing. If you go to do a black water flush of your black water tank and you put the water to it, but there's no water running into the tank, that tells me that the water isn't getting through. And when you're going up and down in altitude, from like if you go out west up into the Rockies, you can get a vacuum lock on these things, and you won't be able to get any water into the black tank. So you'll have to open up the potty and run a hose in through the window and fill your tank and dump it, fill your tank and dump it, and that's just a pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace this little part, and we'll show you where it is. In this case, it's underneath the bathroom sink in our mid bath. We're going to take it out, and we're going to install the new one, and then we're going to give it a try and make sure that the water is running in the tank. Shouldn't be too hard, but nonetheless, we'll show you how it goes. So we're going to go in here into the bathroom, and underneath the sink, if you see up here this little clear, that little clear valve, that's your black water tank breaker. So we're going to take that out, and we're going to install a new one. Okay, this is a half-inch line, so it's just like an outdoor hose. You just unscrew the thing and pull it out of the way, and the one up top, you may have to grab it here with a pair of pliers, spin it off, and this thing, when it's installed, it has to be installed vertically, so it has to go in like this. Okay, now this is the water that comes in, this is the water that goes out. Now on this, you'll see, if I can see the light here, it has a flow. So we want the water to come up from the bottom and flow this way. So let me get a hold of it again. And run it in there tight so it doesn't leak, and make sure that it's vertical. And we want to install the line on the bottom. All right, we've got it installed, and it's vertical, and it's tight there, and it's tight there. And now all we should have to do is go back outside, hook the hose up, and give it a test and see if it works. There's the bad one. That's $52, and I've replaced this twice. Coming down out of the mountains, it seems like they always get screwed up. So All right, well, we connected the black water flush hose up, and I can hear the water running into the tank. So another good fix, and which makes me happy, and because I like to keep my black tank really, really clean. And since we're parked for a while, I'm gonna flush it out really, really hard, make sure it's real clean inside, and then let it dry out. When we get ready to go back out, I'll go ahead and I'll add water to it and chemical at that time. So I hope this has been helpful, our fixing our hot water tank and fixing our black water flush system. If you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it, like, share, and subscribe. We are Herons on the Fly.